So it took some time to get over that.
Yeah, I just needed to break myself past the point of like, you can keep pulling. You need to get up enough to where it's gonna stall. If you don't, then you're just gonna sit there and the plane's just gonna keep trying to like pop down and fly something.
Yeah. Oh, you're doing the mustache too, huh?
Yeah, but I'll probably trim it and like,
Did you lose a bet?
no,
I wasn't sure. I just.
I look good with the mustache.
I'm a fan.
Thank you. Has anybody seen Ali?
What's the name that was with the 36?
Just go to dispatch, ask them what's the last hops time, and then write that in.
I guess. Like. It's just.
Private.
Right.
Yeah. What was that video you sent me? So yeah, it was through text, like, gonna just pull it up on here.
Yeah, hold on, let me see if I can. I think it was just. YouTube shorty. They flaps on your single with that YouTube. Try to look on the p-hack and can you see anything.
Was it this video right here?
Yeah,
Okay. All right,
so
I'm gonna wait to take it time to see if Ali comes.
also on the VFR night flight, when it says source of power. What is it? I mean, I'm assuming it's talking about like a battery. Or
Yeah, it's talking like a source of electricity. Like,
Okay.
it's not saying that you need your engine at night. It's like a source of electricity.
Okay.
Because
I was just wondering why it's, they have that, it seems redundant compared to, like, cause you still need lights for, day flight, so I guess that would
yeah.
use the anti-collision.
So the correct 91-205 verbiage is an adequate source of electrical energy for all installed electrical and radio equipment. So that's going to be like, for us, like the battery. So that's going to be the exact verbiage of that. Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to week 3 of advanced trigonometry.
Oh, I'm out.
So before we get into the PowerPoints, a student sent in a video regarding some aerodynamics of our airfoil and adding flaps. So the question is, does flaps increase the angle of attack? What does everybody think before we watch the video? What do you guys think?
I mean, you have instructed them jets.
Mhm.
When I've done ground school before and gone through it, it didn't bring that up at all, so that's what the question was. And both sound legit.
Mhm.
I'm not a
Yeah, I get it.
mechanical engineer, so I'm like.
Me
what?
either. So we'll go ahead and watch this.
Does lowering the flaps increase an airplane's angle of attack? Many pilots think it does because the chord line rotates backwards when the flaps are lowered on most airplanes. But what most pilots don't realize is that lowering the flaps also moves the center of pressure. Now, for those of you who don't know, the center of pressure is the spot where we balance an airplane. And when the center of pressure moves back, this causes the nose of the airplane to get super heavy because the center of gravity is now further away from that spot. This in turn causes the airplane to pitch down, which changes the angle of the wind hitting the front of the wing. This is what we call relative wind. And this leaves the angle of attack virtually unchanged. Does lowering the flaps increase an airplane's angle of attack?
That is a good point. I would still disagree, in my opinion. Yes, the nose does want to come down, but do we just let it? Like, do we just let the airplane go down? Like, we give it that up trim. So I do see where he's coming from. Because the chord line is the imaginary line from the leading edge to the trailing edge, right? So when you do extend flaps, it's bringing that chord line, it's going to change that chord line. And then, yes, the relative wind may change as you are descending or changing your pitch attitude. I don't know. I would still personally disagree with that. I see where he's coming from and take it with a grain of salt. You know, you can think that it does versus you think that it doesn't. But my argument would be is that we're not just going to let the airplane put itself in a pitch down attitude. If you're maintaining slow flight, right? And we talked about like instrument position there, with some of the airspeeds. But if you want to maintain slow flight and you add flaps, you're going to have a higher angle of attack. The relative wind, you're still moving in this direction. Relative wind is still coming in this direction. We have to have that high angle of attack to be able to maintain altitude at a low power setting. So I would say maybe both answers are right. Yes, it does change angle of attack. No, it doesn't, depending on your flight operation, like what you're doing. Like if you're in a steep descent, with flaps, right, you're still moving this way, but you're also going down. So the relative wind is going to be different than maybe if you're like this leveled or like this climbing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we can look more into it. We can look more into it. But we do know for a fact that the extended flaps does change the chord line of the aircraft. And we know the angle of attack is the difference between the chord line and the relative wind. So I would just say it depends on what we're doing as our operation, climbing, descending.
I hate to interrupt, but do you know how to create a King Schools account?
Create one?
Yeah.
Do you have a link? Did they send you a link?
Yeah, but I don't have it. I never created a King School. They're trying to get me to sign to my commercial.
I'll just follow what's on there.
If you're on what?
Yeah, no, I signed up. Create.
Opportunity.
Today though, we're gonna be going over airspace, which is kind of a bigger topic. Jan, I'm gonna stop sharing the screen really quick so I can finish the attendance just for, private information. Just not on the recording, and then I'll reshare it.
Sure, good again, Corey. You recharge a bit.
Yeah, I'd say so. I really didn't do much this weekend, so just
There's nothing wrong with that, man.
hung out.
You got a lot going on in your life, because you're driving towards something.
No.
It's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say I'm pretty busy because I'm not just in, working here. I'm also in school,
Oh, yeah.
getting my second bachelor's and master's, so when I leave here, I'm most likely doing stuff like that.
Oh, wow, that's a lot.
Yeah,
Aeronautical based.
yeah, aeronautics, so.
You ever say you work too much, Corey?
I tell myself that. Um, last week was more like a normal working week. The week before was ridiculous and.
Yeah, that's right, I understand.
Oh, thank you. Where do you see that? Something like that.
Usually email.
Yes, Jan, you want to put it in the chat or? Maybe it was a
Mistake.
accident. All right. We'll keep it going then. All right, so we're on week 3 of the private pilot ground class. I believe in your King School, it's going to be, this phase is gonna be titled Takeoff and Landings. But this week specifically, we're gonna be talking about charts and publications, chart symbology, airspace, and aviation regulations. Specifically today, we're gonna spend time on the different airspace. So that's probably gonna be the different airspace in civil aviation, as well as all the special use airspaces, things of that nature. All right, so airspace. So the national airspace system is going to consist of 2 different categories, regulatory and non-regulatory. Within these 2 categories, there's 4 types. Controlled, meaning having a tower, uncontrolled, not having a tower, special use airspace, and then other airspace. The special use airspace will be some that you maybe don't, some of them you don't see often. Hello, Jan. Can you hear me? Here, I'll check the chat and see if I can get that fixed. Give me 1 second. All right, there we go. It should be working now. I don't know why it always has that. All right, go ahead, send your chat, Jan. Um, I'm not sure if there is a Zoom setting. I think that's just your computer if you have your microphone enabled, your iPad if you have your microphone enabled. So if you do have any questions, just type it through our Discord messages, and I'll leave that open so I can see that as it comes up.
Also, you should have them check sound settings and go to input device and make sure it's set.
Sound settings, input device, and make sure it's set to computer. Or go to, since you're on your mobile, go to general, the general settings, and then go to Zoom and make sure microphone is enabled. All right. So yeah, within these categories, we have the controlled, uncontrolled, special use and other airspace. There will be acronym for the special use airspace, which we might get into later. The categories and types of the airspace are dictated by the complexity or density of the aircraft's movements, nature of the operations conducted within the airspace, and the level of safety required, as well as national and public interest. So as we get to busier areas where there's a lot of larger aircraft flying in and out on a more regular, at a more regular rate, those class of airspace will be like Class Bravo, like San Diego International, all the big international airports. Class Charlie are sometimes designated for busier, bigger airports. And then like ourselves, Class Delta, we're still busy. It's mostly general aviation, so not a lot of jets come in and out compared to the other bigger airports. But we still have that. And then we move into Class Echo and Class Golf, which are going to be the uncontrolled. And then Class Alpha, which we'll get into a little later, but starting with Class Alpha. So every airspace we go over, we're gonna talk about the dimensions, the entry requirements, and the weather minimums. So it always starts at 18,000 feet MSL across the entire United States. So no matter where you go, 18,000 feet MSL is going to be Class Alpha. From 18,000 feet MSL up to and including flight level 600. So that's referring to 60,000 feet. Anything above 18,000 feet is usually referred to as flight levels. So 24,000 feet is flight level 240. 30,000 feet, flight level 300, and so on. To enter this airspace, you have to be instrument rated and under an instrument flight plan, so instrument flight rules. So if we did have an aircraft as here at Sling that could allow us to go up to 18,000 feet, you can't just be a private pilot to go fly in the airspace. You have to be instrument rated and you have to be on an instrument flight plan. The VFR weather minimums, it's not applicable because, like I said, you'll be IFR. Everybody good on this dimension entry requirements? Okay, Class Bravo. So it's classified for large and very busy airports. So key examples, San Diego International, LAX, San Francisco, Denver, Dallas, Chicago. All those airports that have the big airlines flying in and out. So the dimensions are customizable and surround a big international airport. It's usually shaped like an upside down wedding cake. Which we'll talk about more later, but essentially refers to the see if I can get the document over here, which I'll pass around. It shows like a side view. If not, then I'm gonna pull up a chart to show you guys. Yeah, it's not here, so I'll just Google the upside down wedding cake. So if you guys can see this, you see Class Bravo and Class Charlie, how it looks like a wedding cake upside down. That's what it's referring to. So as you get further out from the airport, and higher up, the shelves is what they call them change as far as their width, like their radius and their altitude dimensions. So when it refers to upside down wedding cake, that's what it's referring to. All right. So continuing off with Class Bravo, the entry requirements, you need ATC clearance. So ATC has to verbally say you are cleared into the Class Bravo airspace. If they do not say that, you are not able to go through. You have to have a private pilot license or a proper student pilot endorsement. Me personally, as an instructor, I don't usually give Class Bravo endorsements. I just have the students go around the Bravo. But once you get your private pilot license, you're free to do as you want. Then we need a Mode C transponder. That's one of the required equipment within our aircraft, and the Mode C is just the type. What is the maintenance schedule for transponder? How many months?
24 calendar.
24 calendar months, so.
And is that an ADVS out? Is that a type of a mode C?
Type of Mode C?
Yeah,
Transponder or?
yeah, like ADB, is it ADBS out?
Yeah, so ADSB in and the ADSB out are pretty much what allows us to be able to see other aircraft, like on our map, and then they can see us. The Mode C transponder, there's different types, but I just want to read up the correct verbiage for you guys because. So the Mode C transponder transmits an aircraft's altitude and identification code to air traffic control radar systems. Meaning that when you type in that squawk code, when you do VFR flight following, or when you do IFR stuff, there's gonna be a specific 4-letter or 4-number transponder codes that like designated to you as the pilot, in your aircraft. ATC will be able to see where that's at on the radar, and they'll also be able to see your altitude. So the Mode C transponder is simply for ATC to be able to see our code, where we're at, and our altitude. The ADSB in and out is simply for traffic advisories for other aircraft and making yourself visible to other aircraft if they have equipment that allows them to see.
So that's not a required intro.
No, just the Mode C transponder. Weather minimums. So visibility is going to be 3 statute miles. And cloud clearance is clear of clouds. So for you to maintain VFR within a Class Bravo airspace, visibility has to be at least 3 statute miles, and you have to not fly through clouds. Good. So once again, here's a sectional chart. This is specifically, I believe, for the LAX. Class Bravo airspace. Class Bravo airspace is going to be these solid blue lines. Kind of make an odd shape, but solid blue lines. And then the dimension of that shelf is going to be where it has the sort of fraction looking thing. So you're gonna have typically 100, which means 10,000. The Bravo shelves go up to 10,000, and then it'll be over another number or over FFC, which means surface. So this Bravo shelf right here, it goes from surface all the way to 10,000 feet. For this Bravo shelf off to the right, it goes from 2,000 feet to 10,000 feet. So realistically, if you wanted to, you could fly under or over that Bravo shelf as long as you're below 2,000 feet MSL and you're above 10,000 feet MSL. You wouldn't need clearance. But if you wanted to fly through at 5,000, you need clearance and have to be at least a private pilot or a student pilot with endorsements. Any questions on this? Moving on to Class C, Class Charlie airspace. These dimensions, just like the Class Bravo, are customizable and surround congested airports. Typically the upper shelf, meaning the upside down wedding cake, the bigger radius shelf, has a 10 nautical mile radius and reaches up to 4,000 feet AGL. The lower shelf is typically half of that at 5 nautical mile radius and reaches up to 1,200 feet AGL. So looking back at that picture of the airspaces, That's great. Looking at the class Charlie right here, this upper shelf has a 10 nautical mile radius and goes up to 4,000 feet AGL. And then the lower shelf right here is only 5 nautical miles and up to 1,200 AGL. So still the same shape as the Bravo, but a little bit different dimensions. It's a little easier to fly over if you need to, because it doesn't go up to 10,000. Entry requirements, so you have to establish two-way radio communications. Who remembers what that two-way radio communications means?
So you have to connect with tower. Tower has to, so you have to use whatever their tower handle is, and they have to actually respond back to you with your call sign.
Yep, specifically, you would have to hear your call sign. So unless you hear that call sign, you're not able to go within this airspace. Once again, you need that mode C transponder. What does the mode C transponder do?
Shows altitude and where you are, identification.
Yep. Yep, where you are based off your altitude and your transponder code. The weather minimums for VFR to fly through this airspace: 3 statute mile visibility, cloud clearance, so it's 1,000 feet above, 500 below, and 2,000 feet horizontally. So you're gonna, at the end, I'm gonna give you guys the weather triangle. If you haven't seen that or heard of that already, it's a good, easy way to remember all of these VFR weather minimums for the airspaces. But yeah, visibility 3 statute mile, which is very, very low. If you've flown in even 5 or 6 statute mile visibility, it's a lot different than unrestricted visibility. So 3 statute miles, cloud clearance 1,000 feet above, 500 below, 2,000 feet horizontally. So you have to be at least 1,000 feet above the clouds, at least 500 feet below, and 2,000 feet horizontally. Why may this be? Like, why do you think they specifically have the horizontal and the above distance is more than the below distance? What could be a concern?
Maybe somebody coming in or out of the cloud,
Yeah, so you could have aircraft climbing out the clouds.
or like mountains or something.
Yeah, definitely. If you're flying below, you know you can see the mountains ahead. But flying above, you may not always see that. So very, very important. Class C airspace is going to be this magenta solid line. This example is John Wayne, so heading up to the Orange County area, right before you get to LA. John Wayne is located there. As you see, these shelves go up to 4,400 and 5,400. So these airspaces and shelves are customizable. So it's not a set rule that they can only go up to 1,200 or only go up to 4,000. They can be adjusted based off the needs of the airport. But all these shelves, 5,400, 4,400, easy to fly over this. You definitely don't want to fly through it unless you have the two-way radio communications. And if you look at this inner circle right here, this is roughly going to be about 5 miles. And then this outer one, even though it's not a perfect circle, it's most likely going to be 10 nautical miles. So from the center of the airport over here, it's most likely going to be around 10 nautical mile radius. Class Delta, which is what we fly out of. Once again, these are customizable and surround all small towered airports. Typically, they reach up to 2,500 feet MSL with a radius of 4 nautical miles. But once again, that can be changed. Entry requirements, you need that two-way radio communication, so you have to hear your call sign. The weather minimums for VFR flying through this airspace is going to be 3 statute mile visibility. Once again, cloud clearance is 1,000 feet above, 500 below, 2,000 feet horizontal. When trying to remember all these weather minimums, just like the Cessna 152, a lot of these weather minimums you can remember as 3,152 or 1,152, just like the Cessna 152. But 1,000 feet above, 500 below, 2,000 feet horizontal. Class Delta airspace. So this is Santa Maria. It is a dashed blue line, typically in just a circle, one shelf, unlike the Class Charlie and Bravo. This altitude of the airspace is going to be in this square. That's only like the corners of the square. It's going to have a 2-digit number. Can anybody tell me what this 2-digit number means?
2,800 feet.
2,800 feet. What if it had a minus sign right here?
Under 28.
So up to and not including. So what would it be exactly?
2,799.
Yep, exactly. Very important to know. I personally wouldn't fly over an airspace by 1 foot, but if you decided to do that, then feel free, but just know that's what it is. Class Echo airspace. So this can start of 1 of 3 floors, reaches up to the overlying airspace. So it could start at the surface, 700 AGL or 1,200 feet AGL. The entry requirements, there are none for VFR. You can just fly through it. It's like the Wild West. VFR weather minimum. So this is when it becomes a little more complicated, and this is when the weather triangle will help when I send that to you guys. But below 10,000 feet MSL, the visibility is 3 statute miles, and the cloud clearance is 1,000 feet above, 500 below, 2,000 feet horizontal. Above 10,000 feet MSL, it's going to be visibility of 5 statute miles, cloud clearance 1,000 feet above, 1,000 feet below, and 1 statute mile horizontal. So I'll go back to that just so you can see it again. This one has different VFR weather minimums for whether you're above or below 10,000 feet MSL. And it'll be easier to memorize once you have that triangle. Any questions on this? Pretty straightforward. You good? Class Echo airspace. So you're going to see it displayed a few different ways. So this magenta dashed line, the circle is going to be the Class Echo that starts from the surface. So from surface up to the next airspace, it's going to be Class Echo surface. Then you can see there's this thicker magenta fuzzier line, kind of like a shadow. So within the inside, so like right here where it says Cuchillo, this little circle, it's on the fuzzy side. That's going to be starting from 700 feet AGL and up. Sometimes we'll see like a blue fuzzy line like this. It's not really common to see it, but that could be 1,200 feet and up.
Was it the fuzzy blue one? The fuzzy blue?
Yeah, so I don't think I've ever flown in a place and seen one. I've had to really search like within the United States to find it.
It's usually in like Alaska.
Yeah, it's like very, very like uncommon areas. But yeah, that's Class Echo. Lastly, Class Golf, uncontrolled airspace that is not classified as Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, or Echo. This is always going to start from the surface to the overlying airspace. So going back to the situation right here, if we're here at Cuchillo, from surface up, it's going to be Class Golf, up to 699 feet, and then at 700 feet, AGL is where the class echo is going to start. So they pretty much just layer all the way up. Entry requirements, there are none. Weather minimums, once again, this one's gonna be a little complicated. It's gonna have different ones depending on altitude and day or night. So VFR weather minimums above 10,000 feet MSL, day or night, is visibility of 5 statute miles, cloud clearance 1,000 feet above, 1,000 feet below, 1 statute mile horizontal. Cool. So this is the weather minimums continued for class Gulf. So we know that above 10,000 feet MSL, day or night, it's gonna be a 5 statute mile visibility, 1,000 feet above, 1,000 feet below, and 1 statute mile horizontal. From 1,200 feet AGL up to 10,000 feet MSL during the day, the visibility is gonna drop down to 1 statute mile, cloud clearance being the 152, 1,000 feet above, 500 below, 2,000 feet horizontally. From 1,200 AGL to 10,000 MSL during night, visibility is going to be 3 statute miles, 1,000 feet above, 5,000 feet below, 2,000 feet horizontally with the cloud clearance. Good. And then now below 1,200 feet AGL during the day, visibility drops back down to 1 statute mile, clear of clouds. At night, below 1,200 feet AGL, 3 statute miles, and then the cloud clearance goes back to 1,000 feet above, 500 below, and 2,000 feet horizontally. So for some reason, the most uncontrolled and unregulated airspace, they have the strictest, or the most VFR weather minimums out of all the different airspaces.
Also, if you operate within half mile within a runway, at night, it changes to 1 statute mile.
I believe so, yes. I usually don't teach that just because it's such very specifics, you know, like you're never. Yeah, I would just ignore that. But it is a thing. These last ones though are gonna be what you need to really remember. All right, so we know VFR, visual flight rules, but there is special VFR. So this can be conducted under the weather minimums and requirements of the section, instead of those contained in 91-155, below 10,000 feet MSL. So here's the rules regarding special VFR. You must have an ATC clearance, so you as a pilot have to request special VFR. You must remain clear of clouds. You can't fly through them. You just have to remain clear of them. And then the flight visibility must be at least 1 statute mile visibility, which is very, very low. To take off, the ground visibility must be at least 1 statute mile. Do it at night, so special VFR at night. Pilot and plane must be instrument rated and equipped. So special VFR is a request or a way that we can go fly even if the weather minimums are slightly below the airspace weather minimums, the VFR weather minimums. You can request special VFR as long as you got clearance, you're clear of clouds, 1 statute mile visibility, and then on the takeoff and ground, the visibility has to be at least 1 statute mile. I've never done this, so I definitely haven't done it at night. But yeah, you have to be an instrument rated pilot and plane to do special VFR at night. Was everybody done with that?
Yeah, I have a question why they differentiate between flight visibility and ground visibility. It's the same amount.
So it is the same amount, but your visibility on the ground might be more or less than what the visibility is in the sky. Because as you go up in different layers of the atmosphere, different the visibility might be different. A lot of places may not have equipment that can report ground visibility. So then you can substitute the flight visibility for the ground visibility. It's the same distance, it's just referring to as literally whether you're on the ground or in the air. I want everybody to turn on uh, their AirDrop right now on whatever device you want to. If you want this, turn it on. If you don't want it, be my guest, but this will really help you remember. It helped me. So let me know when everybody has it on.
Good.
Whose fly pad? Cool. You want it sent to your phone? Jonathan's iPhone. Shinya, you want it to your laptop?
What's this?
Okay, never mind. I asked everybody to turn their AirDrop on, and I saw yours on, but I'll send it anyway.
I heard that, but. I just always think you were ending there.
What is yours titled?
KEK.
Hmm. I sent you. Did I send you yet or no? What's yours called?
3.
Oh, there it is. Cool. Anybody else not get it and they want it?
I don't get it.
So this is all those VFR weather minimums for specific airspace. This weather triangle is just sort of a central, easy way to look at all of those weather minimums, depending on the airspace and altitude and whether it's day or night. So this is what I use to remember it. If you have any questions about it, please feel free to ask me so I can try to explain it. But essentially, all it is just showing different altitudes, above 10,000 feet MSL, between 1,200 AGL and 10,000 feet MSL, and then below 1,200 feet AGL. The one on the bottom, class Bravo, 3 clear of clouds. That's just whatever altitude you're at, it's going to be 3 clear of clouds. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Then at the bottom, you can see the basic weather minimums of what considers VFR to be VFR, what's considered marginal IFR, low IFR, and then the special VFR. So the top triangle is specific to airspace. The bottom chart is just specific to just the weather in general, not necessarily for specific airspace. Does it make sense to everybody looking at it? Cool. I'll take a round of applause because yours truly made this a lot of time and effort. So, cool. And then Jan, I can send that to you after class. I'll send it through the chat. So, all right. What do we have on time? 1:46. Okay, let me try to fix. Actually, screw it. Everybody take a 10-minute break. Is it me or is it hot in here?
It's warm. It's definitely not, it's normal food to adjust.
All right, there we go, Jan.
Hey,
All right, I can hear you now. Hey.
all right. Ripper. You can hear me okay?
Was he like force muted?
It was force muted, yeah.
Thank you very much.
No worries. Yeah. So anytime you have a question, feel free to ask. I don't know why the setting keeps getting changed. It should just be allowed for anybody to chat or talk, but must be for.
Yes. It's right.
All right, cool. Right now we're on like a 5-10 minute break, so I'll send you that weather triangle minimums.
Okay,
You
now
have that.
I'll go and grab a quick coffee.
Well, good truck, aren't you?
It is, yeah.
Thank you.
I've been needing one of these.
Yeah, it makes it a little easier to understand. Some people use a different method where you draw like a big E and a G. I personally don't like that. It's pretty confusing in my opinion.
Beautiful. It fits right in. Oh, you ready?
Who's it with? Switch. Okay. Wants to do it. Catalina.
To where?
Catalina.
That'd be cool. That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Have you talked to anyone about how they, like anyone that's flown Catalina, how they would do it? I would ask, I know Tucker,
Yeah, it's hard to win.
he's flown to Catalina, so I'd ask him about his flight time. I think fly like 3 times this week, and I think next week I'm gonna fly like one more time. And then I'm gonna try to do like my face check for my safe person.
I like the cross country so far.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, I'm not flying anymore. I'm just burning out at that point, but it's been good. They're fun, they're easy.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes it so.
I literally just listen and then go.
I do miss them like here and there, but that's because I'm like talking to Kelly. Like I feel like if I was just sitting in the cockpit by myself, I'd be so dialed listening to flight calling. I'd be like strictly listening out for my call number and stuff.
I mean, on my solos, I just put music on, but just like quiet enough. It's just
Really? I don't even know if I'll put music on my solo.
it's fine as long as you're just listening. As long as you're not blasting.
I'll get way too into it though. Like I get way too into like I blast it in my car.
You're too bored. You don't.
I'm dialed. So I'm dialed.
Autopilot, take a couple pictures.
Sure, no, I'm gonna be sending photos. I'm definitely gonna be taking like the mandatory Snapchat video like go. No one else in the cockpit I'm flying. Or like have to. But I think after I pass my face, like my first solo is gonna be a Hemet and back, and then my next one's gonna be Hemet or here to San Bernardino. Like that. Right? Or what's the requirement? What's the
You need to, well, on the solo, the long one, you need to stop at 3 different airports.
Yeah. I think it'll be
And,
San Bernardino, Ramona, then
Ramona.
Gillespie.
okay, yeah, as long as one of the legs is at least 50 nautical miles, which San Bern,
Yes,
and the total is 150.
yeah.
you're good.
I think that's why we flew it before. We flew like the San Bernardino Ramona and that to do the solo. What did you do for your requirement for that one?
Riverside, which is just, south. San Bern, Riverside, it's kind of complicated, you know, that area. And then transition through the Charlie to Emmett, and then head back.
Doesn't it have to be 3 tower airports, man?
Not for this requirement.
Oh, really?
The airplane, that was 3. I mean,
I thought it was.
let's check that out.
The night cross country over 100 nautical mile total distance.
Yeah, but this one, that's a separate one. It's just gonna take those two.
Everybody's so lively today.
Total cross country flight of 150 nautical miles to get from walls up to the base. Oh, yeah, you.
Do you think you guys are all like
All I need is.
mute?
Oh,
Just taking it in, man. Taking it in. At least I feel like I'm engaging.
You are.
Let me in.
Everybody's so quiet on pretty much Monday through Thursday, and then Friday comes around and I want to have a chill day, and you guys just start rapid firing questions.
Just when your defenses are low.
Yeah. You can sleep.
Yeah,
Cause. Yes, cause this thing's so fine. You can take.
I've tried it all the time.
Alright. It's been about 5 to 10 minutes, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. So there's weather minimums for every airspace, but there's also speed limits. Below 10,000 MSL, the max speed you could go is 250 knots of indicated airspeed. Below 2,500 AGL and within 4 nautical miles of Class Charlie or Delta Airport, it is 200 knots of indicated airspeed. below Class Bravo shelf or through a Class Bravo VFR corridor, also 200 knots indicated airspeed. Here's a little diagram that kind of shows that. The speed limit within the United States in general is Mach 1. So if you're above 10,000 feet MSL, you could technically go Mach 1. But this is specifically for below 10,000 MSL and through different airspaces.
Good.
All right, now we're moving into that special use airspace. Little more complicated. There's a lot of things you have to remember, but special use airspace, referred to as SUA or sometimes Special Area of Operation, SAO, is a designation for an airspace which certain activities must be confined. There also may be some limitations imposed on aircraft operations that are not a part of those activities. So here's the list. Military operating areas or MOAs. Controlled firing areas. Prohibited areas. Restricted areas. Alert areas. Warning areas. National security airspace. And that's it for like special use airspace. So the acronym that I like to use is just MCPRAWN. 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 And then we'll go into the details of each of these airspaces.
You say that.
Not MCPRAWN. Everybody stare at the strange man walking through our class. All right, so we'll start with prohibited areas. Prohibited areas contain airspaces, defined dimensions within which the flight of aircraft is prohibited, meaning that you are not allowed to fly through those. It's usually for security reasons or national welfare. They're published in the Federal Register and are depicted on aeronautical charts. The area is charted as a P followed by a number. So example P-40. Examples of prohibited areas include Camp David and the National Mall in Washington, D.C., where the White House and the congressional buildings are located. So these are airspaces that you cannot fly through or over. Then you go back to that. This is how they're going to be depicted. It'll literally say prohibited and then a P followed by a number, and it's going to be a blue sort of airspace with the fence. So anything inside where these little fences are, or prongs, whatever you want to consider them, anything inside this is that prohibited area. And you cannot fly through. Restricted areas. So this is where operations are hazardous to non-participating aircraft and contain airspace within which the flight of aircraft, while not wholly prohibited, is subject to restrictions. So this means that if you'll hear the term hot or cold or active or not active, if they are hot or active, you cannot fly through them. You can get permission from the controlling agency to fly through them. Most of the times I just try to avoid them and route plan around them. If they are cold or inactive, then you're able to fly through. But these are gonna have an R followed by a number. Uh, they're depicted on the en route chart appropriate for use at the altitude or flight level being flown. Both prohibited and restricted airspace on the inside flap of a VFR sectional chart, you'll be able to find those. So actually on a paper chart, you'll be able to find information on that. It'll usually include times of when they're active, when they're inactive, the controlling agency's frequency or phone number, so you can call and get more information about that. These will also be blue. And then on the inside where the little fence is located is the area that is restricted. You'll commonly see the R followed by the 4-digit number, and it might say a letter. That's going to be if there's multiple different restricted areas here that you have to avoid. So they might have different times, they might have different altitudes, they might have a different controlling agency. So in the areas where there's 2 different restricted areas, or in this case 3, because we also have Alpha, Bravo might be hot, but Charlie and Alpha might be cold. So you always have to pay attention to that. In ForeFlight, if everybody wants to open up ForeFlight and go to the map view of the VFR sectional. Let me know when everybody's there. Thumbs up. Cool. So you see at the top left where it has like the little layers and it says like VFR can be up here. If you click on that and you click aeronautical, you're going to see it allows you to click on the restricted areas, click on airports. It's going to be a different color. So if you turn off aeronautical, it's going to show the restricted area up by Oceanside. So follow the coast up to where Oceanside is. If you have the aeronautical setting turned off, it'll show it as a blue border with the fences. If you turn the aeronautical on, it's going to show it as orange, but it gives you altitude. So it'll give you altitudes of each of the restricted area. There's 3 or 4 over here, 4. So it'll give you altitudes for the restricted 2503 Alpha, 2503 Bravo, Charlie, and Delta. So this is a good way of using ForeFlight to see what the altitudes are of the different prohibited or restricted areas. You can also, when you have the aeronautical section or setting turned on, you can also click on the orange restricted airspace, and then you'll see it's going to pull up on the right hand side. It's going to pull up the airspace, and you can click details, and it's going to show you the lower and upper limits. It's going to show you the frequency to communicate. It's going to tell you more information about the hours and the operational notes. Can everybody see that? So that's one good tool to use in ForeFlight to find information about it. Otherwise, on a VFR paper chart, paper sectional chart, it's going to have a little inside flap that'll have information about those restricted areas. Also, under the settings on the top left, where you can select which chart you want, you can also select TFRs and NOTAMs. That's going to show more, it'll highlight those airspaces if they are currently active or not. So that's also a good tool to use. Any questions on using those settings in ForeFlight or what a restricted and prohibited area is? If not, we will move on.
I think I have different colors.
Why do we have different colors? Like, why is it showing orange instead of
Like pink.
that's just how ForeFlight shows it. What you need to know though is restricted and prohibited are the blue borders with the little like lines on the inside of it. Fourth light just shows that. I don't know why. It's just how fourth light shows it. All right, moving on. Warning areas. So warning areas are similar in nature to restricted areas, so they might be active, they might not be active. The United States government does not have sole jurisdiction over the airspace. Why is that? A warning area is an airspace of defined dimensions extending from 3 nautical miles outward from the coast of the United States, containing activity that may be hazardous to non-participating aircraft. So warning areas you're going to see off the coast of the United States. If you look on ForeFlight and you're looking at San Diego, if you go west, you're going to see warning area 291 Echo. And it tells you it's from ground to flight level 800, so 80,000 feet. And if you click on it, it's going to tell you it's currently active right now. So warning areas are going to be off the coast, 3 nautical miles extending outward. So this is to warn non-participating pilots of potential danger. They may be located over domestic or international waters or both, which is why the United States doesn't have sole jurisdiction over these areas. It's going to be designated with a W followed by a 3-digit number. So W-237 is this example. These are also going to be blue, and this is what it's going to look like on a VFR sectional chart. It's going to say warning, followed by the W, and then the 3-digit number. It'll give altitudes. Once again, they might be doing, just like the prohibited and restricted, they might be doing certain types of military activities. So they might be flying aircraft. They might be shooting like artillery or different other weapons. So they restrict or prohibit aircraft from flying through these areas. Military operation areas or MOAs. So this is going to be airspace defined with a defined vertical and lateral limits established for the purpose of separating certain military training activities from IFR traffic. They're used to separate military and civilian operations. So clearance is not needed under visual flight rules. You just have to use extreme caution when going through these areas and maintain visual separation. Information on MOAs can be found once again on the inside flap of a VFR sectional chart, or if you activate the aeronautical setting in ForeFlight, you can click on them to find more information about them. These are going to look a little differently. These are going to be the magenta border with defense on the inside. So anything right here, Turtle MOA, so it's going to have the name of the military operating area. Anything inside this is going to be that MOA. So as VFR, you can fly through it just using extreme caution, but it's supposed to create separation for military and IFR traffic. I always avoid these. This is like the route I take to fly to Vegas. So you're coming through here, I just stay in between them. Whether it's hot or cold, it's just easier if you can avoid it. Some flight planning, you might not have the option, you have to go through it. So that's when you want to check that inside flap or call the controlling agency to see if it's active or inactive. Any questions about this? Alert areas. So these are depicted on the charts with an A followed by a number. This informs non-participating pilots of areas that may contain high volume of pilot training or unusual type of aerial activity. This is going to also be magenta. It'll say alert area followed by the A and the 3-digit number. And if there's multiple alert areas, it'll have a letter designated after the number. Use extreme caution in alert areas. So once again, you're not restricted from flying through them, but if they are active or even if they're inactive, always use caution and maintain visual separation. Any questions on the special use airspace, McTron? No. Military training route, so MTRs. This isn't necessarily an airspace, but they're routes used by military aircraft to maintain proficiency in tactical flying. So a lot of times it'll be very low level, very fast type of flying. Might be VFR or IFR. They'll be depicted differently. So these routes are usually below 10,000 feet MSL for operations at speeds in excess of 250 knots. So very fast flying and low level flying. Some route segments may be defined at higher altitudes for purposes of route continuity. I don't know why I said it like that. But these are going to be a grayish, a gray sort of black line. It's more so gray, and it'll say VR with a number or IR with a number. So the IR is going to be the instrument flight rules. So those are military pilots that are operating under instrument flight rules. Well, the VR is going to be visual flight rules. I don't know if it says it on here, but the altitude of the military training routes are dependent on the number after the VR or the IR. So routes at or below 1,500 feet AGL are typically flown under VFR. And then MTRs with no segment above 1,500 feet AGL are identified by four number characters. So anything below 1,500 feet AGL is going to have four numbers. So this VR 1266 will be below 1,500 feet AGL. The VR 288 will be above 1,500 feet AGL. Any questions about that?
Do the numbers identify anything specific to like the altitude, or is it simply like just like a marking, like a street?
Simply, yeah. So these numbers right here, 4-digit numbers, is going to be below 1,500 feet AGL. So when you see military aircraft flying on the VR 1266, they're mostly going to be below 1,500 feet AGL.
But is the 288, does that mean it's 2,800?
No. It's literally just the name that they reference to. So they might say,
just a route.
Yeah, just a route name for military to use.
And what about the IFR?
It's IR, and then so it'll be designated by IR, and then same thing. If it's 4 digits below 1,500 feet AGL, 3 digits above 1,500 feet AGL. Usually though, VFR, the military training routes that are VFR are going to be anything under 1,500 feet AGL is going to be VFR. They're not going to have an aircraft flying in IMC conditions, that low. So anything below 1,500 feet is pretty much always going to be VFR. The IFR usually above 1,500 feet AGL. Temporary flight restrictions are also known as TFRs. So this is a flight data center notice to airmen. So remember how we talked about the two NOTAMs that we're really going to look at, the D and FDC? The FDC is going to contain the regulations, procedures, and airspace. So TFRs will fall under the FDC notice to airmen. So the NOTAM begins with the phrase flight restrictions, followed by the location of the TFR, the effective time period, the area defined in statute miles, and altitudes affected. So the key word is temporary, is that they're not always going to be here. There is one TFR that it's always there, Disneyland. If you look over Anaheim on 4th Flight, you're going to see a TFR for Disneyland. It's always going to be there. They took a TFR and they pretty much made it nonstop. Most of the time, TFRs are temporary. It's like when they're doing firefighting activities, like when we have the fires down here or up in LA, they're going to have a TFR in place to allow firefighters to do their job.
The one in the capital on the East Coast is also still called a TFR, but it's obviously not.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. So it's always going to be there. They don't want you flying through that. So reasons why they might do TFRs or put them in place is to protect public figures. So anytime the president or vice president or other officials travel, there might be a TFR in place. As I mentioned, disaster relief. So during the firefighting activities for the fires here and in LA, they had TFRs in place. Prevent unsafe congestion of sightseeing aircraft. So Super Bowl or anytime they have different sports events, they might have a TFR in place over the arena. Provide a safe area for space agency operations. So if Elon Musk is launching his rockets, they might have a TFR in place over there. This is what it's going to look like. So it's going to be a red circle on 4th Flight. It will have the TFR number and the reason why. And then it'll give you the effective date and then the altitude. So surface of 3,000 feet AGL for this example. I believe Disneyland is also surface to 3,000 feet AGL. And these pop up, so always check. If you're going to go on a cross country or go do flying, make sure you check to make sure there's no TFRs. TERSAs, or terminal radar service areas. Participating pilots can receive additional radar services. The purpose of the service is to provide separation between all IFR operations and participating VFR aircraft. So as a VFR pilot, you're not required to talk to them, but it's highly encouraged to talk to ATC while inside a TERSA. An example would be the Palm Springs area. That's going to be designated by where's the mouse? A black or grayish line. You can see here, there's like a rectangle that goes all the way around. It'll say right outside of it, Palm Springs TERSA, and then it'll give you your in the tower frequency tab, it's going to show you who to talk to. And then just like it's shown for Class Bravo airspaces, you can see there's going to be black numbers, like a little fraction. This is surface to 10,000. This is 2,000 to 10,000. So while it's not required, it's advised to talk to them in congested areas for more radar services.
What's the marking for that? Gray?
Yeah, it's going to be this. So all the black writing, like right here, 3,500, 10,000, and then this gray border that goes all the way around. And there's a few different, you can see right here, there's another gray one. So there might be different shelves.
Yeah.
But yeah, as you can see, it's probably for instrument. But yeah, it's good resource to use. I remember my first time flying. Where was I going to? I was going to Palm Springs. So this is like Palm Springs International. This is like one of my first cross countries. I've been there before, but it was one of my first cross countries as a newer private pilot. you'll learn a lot, you'll make mistakes as you go, but my mistake was that I didn't do flight following when I should have. I highly recommend flight following. It's a very good resource to use. But I remember I wasn't on frequency and I was like, okay, I'm gonna be contacting Palm Springs Tower pretty soon, but I was approaching this Tersa. And I wasn't too knowledgeable on Tersas of whether or not you could fly through it. You see a black line and you're like, oh, I shouldn't fly through here. I was trying to get a hold of the frequency for the Tersa and nobody was answering me. So at this point, I'm kind of freaking out. I'm just circling right outside here, figuring out what to do. And then I started thinking about it. And I'm like, oh, for VFR traffic, it's not required to participate. So I ended up just contacting Tower and then everything was good. But good resource to use if you find the right frequency. Parachute jump operation. So this is going to be on the sectional chart. It's going to be displayed with a little parachute symbol. So when you see this, you can expect that this is where they're doing parachute operations. You'll also see a little note telling you that there's parachute activity at or below 18,000 feet MSL. And then the advisory frequency or SoCal frequency you should talk to are on these. The advisory frequency is the CTAF. So this is just going to be the air-to-air, air-to-ground communications. You're pretty much just listening for the skydiving aircraft to make their calls as well as you make your calls. SoCal is going to be a air traffic control frequency. So if you're on frequency with them, they might warn you of parachute activity. They might vector you around the jump zone, but it's always important to check because there's been times where I think Austin, right, when we flew to Riverside, they made us stay east of the highway because west of the highway they had parachute activities. I think it was, oh yeah, it was right here at Lake Elsinore. So they made us stay to the right of the 15, east of the 15 until we were past the jump area. They're published in the chart supplements, so you can look at more information about that. On ForeFlight, you can also see the different airspaces and click on them to see if they're active or not. The NSA's national security areas. Does this have any information? Yes. So they consist of airspace of defined vertical and lateral dimensions established at locations where there is a requirement for increased security and safety of ground facilities. You can see this little box right here. It says for reasons of the NSA, pilots are requested to avoid flight at and below 5,000 feet AGL. And these will just be designated as a little magenta line with the arrow pointing to it. Flights in these areas may be temporarily suspended for any number of reasons. There's another example. Anything 8,000 and below, they're requested to avoid flight. As you see, there's an ordnance depot here, and then some sort of power plant. So who knows what they're doing out there, but they don't want people flying over it. Air defense identification zones, ADIZ, also in aviation terms, the border between countries. So all aircraft entering the U.S. domestic airspace from points outside must provide for identification prior to entry or exit. So if you look on ForeFlight on a sectional chart, you will see an ADIZ run along the entire U.S.-Mexico border. They're established to assist in early identification of aircraft in the vicinity of the international U.S. airspace boundaries. This comes from the AIM, Section 6, 5-6-1. For defense VFR flights, the estimated time of the ADIZ penetration must be filed within the appropriate aeronautical facility at least 15 minutes before you pass through the ADIZ. So any sort of VFR flights that are flying from Mexico over the border, you have to contact the facility and file it with them at least 15 minutes before you cross. And this is so they know who's coming in and out. So here's an example right here down in San Diego. It's going to show as a sort of magenta bunch of little dots with a solid line. This is going to be that that ADIZ, Air Defense Identification Zone.
No, it said, so it says aeronautical facility. Does it just mean the airport we're going to land at, or is there a specific?
So you'll be like on frequency. So you're gonna hear the term SoCal. So that's gonna be an approach or departure frequency. So they're pretty much buildings that are set up in certain regions of the country. Inside, it's just a dark room, and then there's radar, and a different person sitting at each desk. And they control a certain segment of airspace. So when you're in their segment, you're going to be on frequency with the person that's sitting right here. And then as you near the edge of their airspace, they're going to pass you on to the person sitting next to them, who then controls a different segment of airspace. So whenever you're flying, whether it's IFR or you're doing VFR flight following, you're going to be talking to these controllers, and you need to establish comms with them. Usually they're really good about coordinating with the next controller. So if you're talking to Tijuana departure and you want to fly over here, they're going to be coordinating, as long as you filed it, that you're crossing the border with the next controller in the US. So then they'll pass you on, and then you'll talk to that person and let them know where you are and that you're getting ready to cross the border. Wildlife and wilderness areas. So there's an advisory circular, 91-36. Visual flight rules, flight near noise sensitive areas defines the surface of a national park area, including parks, forests, primitive areas, wilderness areas, recreational, national seashores, national monuments. So this is going, that's it. But this is going to be the blue border with all of the little dots lined up. Inside, so on the side of the dots is going to be that wilderness area. In the advisory circular 91-36, it advises you to fly at least 2,000 feet above ground level in those areas. So when planning a flight that may cross over these areas, you want to make sure that you're at least 2,000 feet AGL. And that's pretty much to follow a noise abatement procedure. They don't want the wildlife or the protected areas to be disturbed with the noise of aircraft flying over. There are some, like up in Half Moon Bay, there is a marine protected area that's right on the coast. And the final approach for that airport, Half Moon Bay, you're going to pass over those marine protected areas, and you're going to be below 2,000 feet AGL. So except for takeoff and landing, you need to make sure you're 2,000 feet above ground level over these areas. I don't think the FAA will come after you, but the environmental protection agencies, they will. So, cool.
Can you go back to the Tersa slide?
Yes. Doc.
And that's just referred to as flight following.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, if you look at it, you find it.
But it's, so if you're IFR, it's mandatory.
Yes, so if you go to Palm Springs International Airport on ForeFlight and you click on it, and under the info tab where all the frequencies are, you can scroll down and there's going to be approach frequencies. SoCal approach. SoCal approach, 8,000 and below, SoCal approach 9,000 to 13,000. And then there's going to be Tersa frequencies, which if you see, it's the same as the SoCal approach frequencies. So if you're doing flight following, you're most likely going to be on one of those frequencies. If you wanted to receive those radar services as VFR, you would contact one of those frequencies. Most likely the 135.275, because that's for the Tersa 8,000 and below, which is most likely what altitude you'll be at. We have 30 minutes left. So if there are no questions, then we're going to, I'm gonna assign each person. You can use notes, but I want to assign each person with a type of airspace. And I just want you to tell me their dimensions, the entry requirements, if there's any equipment or requirements, and then the VFR weather minimums for it. Cool. Class Alpha, Class Bravo, Class Charlie, Delta. You guys want to participate?
Yeah.
Echo and Golf.
That's the one I wanted.
Okay, good. I knew that's what I gave it to you.
Okay, what are we giving?
So all that information that was on each slide regarding the entry requirements, so whether it's, the two-way communications or there are no entry requirements, equipment required, so like the mode C transponder, do you need that or not? Dimensions, so, or is it 4 nautical mile radius? Is it what altitude they go up to? Also how they're depicted on the chart. And then the VFR weather minimums. So you have it kind of tough with the VFR weather minimums, but if you have to use notes, take your notes up. We're just here to recap on the topic and talk about it to your classmates. So whenever we're ready, one at a time, we'll start with Alpha, no rush.
What's this coming up there? 250?
You don't have to worry about the speed limits, but Alpha is going to be, above the 10,000 feet, well above it. So technically the speed limit is Mach 1.
Are we gonna go like in order from like A all the way down to?
If you're ready, we'll start at Golf.
Well, I'm just gonna spit off memory and see if I even get it right. Is that fine?
Yeah. Okay. So if you're ready to go.
Oh. Alright. Listen up, everybody.
Hijacked.
Today we're gonna be learning about airspace golf. Right, so
You can
class.
erase that stuff too if you want.
Class G. All right, class G is not depicted on a sectional, but you just kind of know that it's there. Just think G, just think ground, okay? So if you're looking, this is the best way to describe it. If you're looking at this vignette right here, this is not have to deal with my airspace especially, but it's important to understand, right? On the inside of the vignette, class G will start from surface level up to 700 feet AGL. And on the outside of the vignette, it's going to start at surface level up to 1200 feet AGL, or 1200 feet AGL. And that is where class G is going to start. If it's a blue vignette, on the inside it's 1200 feet, or surface to 1200 feet AGL. On the outside, it's surface to 1400 feet AGL. That's where class G is going to start. So any of this out here, you might look at it and be like, oh, it's class G all the way up to A. No, it's actually class G up to 1200 feet AGL because it is on the outside of this vignette, even if the vignette is very, very far away. It was what it's depicted as. And then
Equipment requirements, entry requirements, and then weather requirements.
okay, equipment and entry requirements. Say for this airport over here, if you're looking around, we are not in any mode C or ADS-B transponder out. So there is really no equipment requirements. You don't need clearance to go into it, but you do need to make your calls if you're flying into this airport, usually around 10 nautical miles out. You'll like tune into the CTAF frequency, which is right there. And you'll kind of just be, hey, 10 nautical miles out, inbound for left downwind or whatever you're going in for, whatever runway. And that's kind of the rules when you're dealing with like a class G airport, kind of like this, you know, it's kind of class G, class E combined type of deal, but we'll just go class G. That's what I'm on. Let's see, the weather. This is where it gets weird. So there's for class G above 10,000 feet MSL, it's 5 statute miles, 111, which is pretty much 1,000 feet horizontal clear clouds, 1,000 feet above clear clouds, 1,000 feet below clear clouds, and then for above 1,200 or 1,200 feet AGL, but below 10,000 feet MSL, it's 3152, 3 statute miles visibility, 1,000 feet clear above, 500 feet clear below, 2,000 feet clear horizontally, and that's during the day. And then during night for above 1,200 feet AGL, below 10,000 feet MSL, it is the same. Pretty sure 3152 as well. Is that correct?
Close. During the day, it's
Oh, is it 3 in clear clouds?
During
It's
the day,
115.
1152, the night 3152.
This one's different.
1152.
1152.
Yeah, just think about it. At night,
You want more separation. Or
yeah.
want more visibility. So during the day, it's only 1 statute mile visibility. And then below 1,200 feet AGL. This is important. AGL and MSL, very important. During the day, it's 3152. And then during the night, is that wrong?
The day below 1,200 feet AGL, yes.
Is it 3 clear clouds? 1 clear of clouds. 1 statute mile visibility, clear of clouds, and then night is 3152.
Yes.
Because you want more spacing at night. And that's the way, that's how it's kind of depicted on a sectional. You can kind of figure it out. Always say G ground. Make sure to look out for that echo airspace. The weather requirements, it's use Corey's triangle. It's very good. It's the best triangle I've seen yet.
Cool.
I have a question.
Yes.
Where is the Gulf airspace that goes up to 10,000 MSL?
There isn't.
Okay.
Echo is gonna
Echo
take
it-
effect.
yeah.
If
That's
you
what
look
I was
at
saying.
any map, can you pull your
Yeah, I got
Cause
you.
that's what I'm saying, like, I see that it says up to 10,000, but like, where does it actually, Are there any gulf that? have-
That's like, so like, think like, cause this is MSL and this is AGL. So say like there's an airport that's very high elevation, maybe it's 11,000 feet elevation.
Okay.
Or like 9,000 feet elevation, so if you're not gonna reach the class Echo airspace till what, 10?
Like, it's
10
possible
to-
to be in Gulf while you're flying above 10,000.
Due to
based on-
Just like
high-
really
Due
low
to
cases.
that, due
Okay.
to like airport
Like, it
elevation.
technically is possible, but
Okay,
It's very rare.
thank you for that, because that's helpful though, in terms of like, when would I actually see that, because it's.
Very rare.
I don't know where to find them.
Go to,
Paul.
yeah, go to, let's see, I don't even really.
Somewhere in the middle.
Maybe Aspen?
It's in Colorado.
Or southeast,
There's Denver.
southeast Denver, just zooming in the mountains there, a little bit west. Grand Junction.
Oh, there's that.
There it is.
It's the Delta.
Oh, okay, so yeah, that's,
Yeah, but there's. Echo right there. See, there's a vignette to the right there.
Oh, yeah. Let's see this
Yeah,
airport
that's it.
elevation.
14.8 over there, so.
Oh, yeah. 9934.
That's pretty high.
It's a high one. So then that would be G up to inside it'd be like 10,000. Pretty much like 10,700 AGL. Somewhere around there. You can kind of just like think like above 10,000 feet MSL. Class G, you're gonna have different requirements.
Cool.
Does that have anything to do with, so above the 1,200 feet AGL and above 10,000? So what comes first, the AGL rules or would the 10,000 MSL rules take over?
Mm, so you're saying if, let's just say the airport elevation was 9,950 feet, but you were at 10,500 MSL, you're still within the 1,200 AGL. That's a good question. I would probably do just like the personal minimums and like good ADM, use whatever the stricter like visibility and requirements are.
So the 10,000 here.
Cool, good job.
Thank you.
Any questions on that? Everybody feel good about it? Class G is kind of more complex and it has to do with airport elevation stuff. All right, class Alpha.
All right. So class alpha airspace, it's not depicted on any of the maps or anything. It's gonna start at 18,000 feet MSL up to FL 600, which is 60,000 feet MSL. There's not necessarily a speed limit up there, and you can say it's a Mach 1. There's no weather requirements at all because you have to be IFR. You have to have your IFR requirements to be able to fly up there. You have to have ATC clearance and then two-way radio communication with them. And then you have to have a mode seed transponder and ADS, ADSB, I think it is, out, something like that. And then there's no VFR flying allowed up there. That's pretty much it.
I have announcements. Class Bravo, generally larger airports, with a mixture of IFR and VFR, so the considerations. The requirements for it, are you gonna need a mode C transponder and ADSB out. I think it's within a range of 10 nautical miles. There's a 20 nautical or about the 20 nautical 30 nautical miles
Yeah.
for that. Okay. In order to fly there, you need to have at least a private pilot license. You can as a student pilot with an endorsement. You need to have two-way comms established. So, all right, I think that is that all the requirements.
So not necessarily a two-way comms, it's a little stricter. You need to have something else. Like, yes, you're obviously gonna have two-way communications with them. Does that mean as soon as you hear your call sign, you can just go through it?
The clearance.
Clearance is really, really big.
So it's upside down. Cake is kind of how it's set up. It can go up to 10,000 MSL. Generally around the airport, you're gonna be at, from ground level. There'll be increments, and it'll be represented by a number over and a number under. So it would be up to between 40,000 or 4,000 and 10,000 would be Bravo airspace. So you can fly underneath it or above it, depending on what requirements for that. Or its characteristics.
Did you say weather minimum? Sorry.
Weather, 3 statute miles visibility and then clear clouds.
And then for everybody who hasn't seen, this is on the sectional chart, this magenta ring right here is the mode C veil. When you zoom in, it says mode C and ADSB out is required within 30 nautical miles. That's going to be surrounding the class Bravo. As you see, it goes all the way around. Cool, good job.
Alright, so. Class Charlie, so Class Charlie is same thing with a, from the 10, I think it's for the upper shelf is 10 nautical miles, and it goes up to 4,000 AGL, and the lower shelf is within 5 nautical miles, and it goes up to 1,200 AGL, and it's depicted as magenta, and the weather manuals for him, it's 3152, so it's basically 3 standard mile visibility, horizontal 3,000, and the 500. Yeah.
Did you say equipment yet? Or no?
Yeah, so you need a mode C transponder and two-way communication.
Cool. Any and usually too, you'll have to have ADSB out, 'cause a lot of times it'll, these airspaces will be within the Moseyville, so.
And it's congested airports.
Any questions? Delta?
Right, class Delta is customizable airspace. It typically surrounds small powered airports. It reaches 2,500 MSL with a radius of 4 nautical miles. For entry requirements, you need two-way radio communication. And for weather minimums, it's visibility 3 statute miles, 1,000 above, 500 below, and 2,000 horizontal. And it's represented by a dashed blue line.
Cool. Just out of curiosity, put you on the spot. Our tower here closes at 9 p.m. What happens to this class Delta after 9 p.m.?
It changes. I think it goes to Echo.
Echo and Gulf. Yep. Because if you're looking at our airspace, it's within the magenta vignette, right? So on the fuzzy side, so that starts from
Surface to,
700.
the,
Inside?
where does the Class E magenta vignette start? That Class Echo airspace, where does it start?
On the inside or the outside?
The inside, which is
Where
where
above 700.
above 700, so therefore then Class Golf will be surface up to that. So depending on which operation you're in, whether you're taking off, flying over, doing traffic pattern, it might be Class Echo, it might be Class Golf. Cool. Any questions?
Yeah, Austin. Let's go.
I'm not gonna hijack the board. Like,
I have to
yeah,
explain it somehow.
Class Echo is just a different type of uncontrolled airspace. It's limited with the vignettes or a dash magenta line that goes to the surface. On the inside of the vignettes, it will start at 700 AGL up to 17,999. And then there's Class Alpha, and then at 60,001 and up, it's Echo again. You don't necessarily need any equipment below 10,000 feet to go into Echo. Above 10,000 feet, you need an emergency transponder, ADSB out, and a two-way radio. Weather minimums below 10,000 is 3152. Above 10,000 is 5111. Yep.
Cool.
what was it, above 10,000, you two-way comms, AB, did you need
ADSB
both?
out, and emergency transponder, yeah.
So above 10,000, you need the ADSB out, once you transponder.
Yep.
And then below, you don't need.
Okay. Unless you're within veil, right? Like us, we live within 3 nautical miles of the ground airspace. Yeah. But if you've ever been to like Hemet, that's past the veil. So you
You
would,
don't need.
yeah.
Gotta be careful. You wanna see a blue plane?
Oh, yes.
Where's
You
one?
found one?
Alaska.
Gonna hijack again.
Always. It's my favorite part. So this is like, it's like the purple vignette, but it's just blue. And usually, there's a lot of these up in Alaska. You just see them kind of around, but same type of deal, right? The inside, more fuzzy side, right by these vector airways, I think, I don't know.
Well, how come it has, like, blue one? Why blue?
It's-
Just make it one.
They're just rare. I think they probably have a purpose, but
Yeah.
the inside is same thing, Gulf surface to 1200 instead of 700. So you can kind of take the outside, and then the outside, like the more solid side, it's surface to 1400. So it just changes when it will switch from Gulf to Echo. That's all it does. But it's still same concept, inside, fuzzy, outside. Kind of.
Is it always 1,400 outside of the vignette?
For the blue.
Oh, just for the blue?
Just for the blue. Remember the purple vignette is, the inside is surface 700 and the outside surface to 12.
And I think one of the key things with the blue one is that, here, zoom out a little bit. So it's right here. So you see how it's like a very patterned sort of shape. All these like light blue lines, not these dark ones, but all these like light blue lines are the Victor Airways. So for whatever reason, I'm not entirely sure, these blue Class Echo boundaries are following those Victor Airways. Why they're mostly in Alaska, I don't really know. But it's all following the pattern of the Victor Airways. So
You find a lot of weird stuff up.
yeah, Alaska's like you need a
It's a
whole
land of
other-
the free up there.
yeah.
Pretty wild. But yeah, that's the difference between like a blue and a purple vignette when it comes to Echo and Gulf.
Cool. Good job. 12:56, 12:57, so we will call it for today. That was the National Airspace Day. Tomorrow we're gonna go into aeronautical charts and FAA publications. So this is going to, it's a very, very, very short section. So we'll probably do that one and then chart symbology, which is also a very, very short section. But we'll probably spend a lot of time looking at the sectional chart and seeing all the different symbols and stuff like that. Cool. Adios. All right, Jan, gonna log off now.
Yep, thanks, Corey.
No worries. See you soon.
See you tomorrow.
All right, bye.
Always say. What do you need? Oh, I didn't want to.